In my last video, I talked about Meltan being the 891st Pokemon and what that means for Generation 8. Because we're going from Pokemon 808 to 890, plus Meltan, and maybe another mythical Pokemon or two, so it looks like the 2019 Pokemon Switch games are going to have 800 and something new Pokemon. Now in the comments section, people are saying I'm wrong, and the argument is mostly because Joe Merrick says so. I have a few problems with this because it isn't really confirmed where Meltan stands, and Joe Merrick isn't official in any way. He can still get things wrong, and I feel like his post defending his argument is very heavily victim to confirmation bias, because Joe Merrick has been saying for a long time now that a Pokemon inside of a game belongs to that generation. So Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, we've known about the secret Pokemon for a while, and Joe Merrick has been adamant that Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee is a Generation 7 game, so any Pokemon introduced will be Generation 7. Now, I feel like anything is possible, that we could get some kind of teaser from a future Pokemon in Generation 8 to kind of help promote Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, despite that Pokemon still being Generation 8. We've kind of seen this before with spin-off games, because we have Pokemon XD Gale of Darkness, Mystery Dungeon, and Pokemon Dash having Munchlax before it was introduced for its generation, and this also happens all the time with movies, because we get a Pokemon from future generation in a previous generation movie. Also, what was going on with Magearna, talked about this in my last video, so I feel like there's still a very strong argument that Meltan is indeed Pokemon 891, but let's go and see what Joe Merrick is on about. Yes, Shral has found that the number of files containing new Pokemon's assets are 891. However, this is not indicative of its ID number. In fact, Zeraora's ID number for its assets is actually 888 rather than its national Pokedex number of 807. Here's an image. Now, yeah, this is something that you can't deny. 888, but the problem is this is from the 3DS. This is from Pokemon Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon, and trying to relate it to Pokemon Go is a bit of a stretch because, like, there's another post from Joe Merrick kind of getting more information and going further in detail because there's all kinds of skips and jumps and weird things when it comes to IDs. So 649 was the end of Generation 5, and the first Gen 6 Pokemon's assets start at 701 with Furfrou all the way up to 774, which is Hoopa, with a couple of gaps in between. Then Gen 7 starts at 801 with Marini, goes up to 888 with Zeraora, and he even mentions over here how Ultra Necrozma is listed at 865. So the forms and some of the other Pokemon and stuff, it just kind of bounces around, and the ID numbers don't really relate to the Pokemon's actual dex number, and we've seen this with the early days of Pokemon. The ones that's gone through the index of Pokemon, we'll know that Rhyhorn is the first Pokemon, and there's even Pokemon from Generation 2 with pre-Generation 2 ID numbers, and that's because of the way that Generation 2 was introduced, and all kinds of crazy Pokemon lore and stuff behind that. But the thing is, the way that Shralis is describing this, and also the way he's listing it on his GitHub, seems very hard set that it's Pokemon 891. Now it's listed as 891 for the assets. We also see the Twitter, labeled as Kecleon Pokemon Go, but Unity files are tagged with Pokemon 891. The Unity files are listing it as 891. We have new Pokemon 891 leak, so we don't really have any other follow-up. I went to his tweets and replies, maybe he tweeted someone, maybe we went from clarification, so we don't know exactly what he thinks. Like, he didn't say, oh, this is just the asset number, which means that this could be Zeraora, or he hasn't said anything about this is actually just Pokemon 891. So if any other tweets and stuff comes out, it's going to be after this video, and then we'll see if there's any more confirmation or debunking from there. But I don't think we can go off of just Joe Merrick because of, like, it just feels weird the way that it relates, and also how it's listed in Pokemon Go. Because Pokemon Go, they have all the existing Pokemon up until Kecleon, and then we only have like the one little icon for Kecleon, because Kecleon is unreleased, and that's why we got all this other weirdness going on. Because it was shown as Kecleon, that if you bring it in, it says Pokemon number 352, color swap Pokemon, Kecleon is capable of changing its body. So this is a stream that Shralis did, showing off how the Pokemon works, but again, the Unity files do show 891, and we also don't have confirmation that that's related to the Pokemon Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon main series handheld console game assets, and it doesn't seem like we're going to find too much of that direct relation. And the weird thing is, the way that people were saying in my comment section that you're wrong, Zeraora is 888, I was like, wait, is there actual Zeraora data inside of Pokemon Go? That seems really bloat. That seems really strange. But no, it was only talking about Pokemon Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon. Pokemon Go data backs that up, and I think it's just not, it's about being an efficient developer. You know, not having that laziness behind it. They're just like, all right, we know it's 891, we're labeling it 891, we're not going to get all messy by skipping around and jumping ahead with numbers, because remember, for Meltan to be in the Generation 7, that means all the new Pokemon starting around Generation 6 or ending Generation 5 or whatever happened with Genesect and that numbers, or with those numbers, that's how Pokemon Let's Go is going to do it. I don't think Niantic is going to be that crazy with the assets and IDs numbers. So we don't really have any other Pokemon. We don't have future Pokemon. We don't have any other example to show that the ID for Pokemon Go is going to be that way with all these new Pokemon. But we do know that Pokemon Go does want all generations, all Pokemon to be playable at some point. So that's why my argument is that putting it in as 891 makes it the simplest, easiest way. Everything else is sequential up until this point. Other forms, they're going to have different listings, like with Cast Form. So Cast Form, we have the Sunny Form. Sunny Form is 351_12. We have the Normal Form. Normal Form is 351_11. We don't see any other like 351, 352. We don't see anything else to identify it. That's just kind of how Cast Form and all these other Pokemon are related. Now, Joe Merrick kind of brings this up, because, you know, now this Pokemon is 891 in asset number. Except it isn't. We don't have 891 asset number in Pokemon Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon for Meltan. And we don't know how it's going to relate to the classification for Pokemon Go. So all forms and Mega Evolutions are listed under base Pokemon asset number, such as Mega Blastoise for 9_51 and Alolan forms for the number _61. Now we do see this for the Pokemon Go assets. If we scroll up to a Pokemon and then we look for a 61 or something, there we go, 52, 61, that's going to give us the Alolan Meowth. So yeah, we can find the Meowth and Alolan Meowth, and then that asset is listed similarly. So this is kind of where the argument hurts Joe Merrick a bit, because he says Mega Blastoise is 951. Well, the thing is, Blastoise is number 9 in the Pokedex, but that is not its ID number. So showing that the ID numbers, it's hard to use as a scale of objectivity for Pokemon's generational influence, and he's just kind of saying, well, 891, that's close enough to Zeraora, so it must be Generation 7. I think that's just pure coincidence at this point, and it's bound to happen, because we have 888. The asset number goes up to 888 with Zeraora, because instead of starting at the previous generation number, just started at 800. We didn't start off at 700 whatever Rowlet's national dex number is. So because we made that jump in the games to 800, that jumps us to 888. Now if we're starting at 807 and we look at the previous generations, Generation 6 only introduced 60-something new Pokemon. Generation 7 only introduced 80-something new Pokemon. So if we're following that trend, getting 80 new Pokemon is something that we've seen recently. It's not something that's completely unheard of, and that's going to add, 807 or 808 to around 890 and put us close to Zeraora. I think that's just pure coincidence, because it makes a lot more sense for Pokemon Go developers to just keep everything concise. That up until this point, all the Pokemon, they haven't been introduced as their ID numbers or their index numbers, they've just been shown as national dex, and they've been added in like that. This is the only time we have something kind of jumping ahead, so it makes it weird. But again, Pokemon 2019 games have been in development for years. This goes back to before Pokemon Ultra Sun, or like around Pokemon Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon, and then we already knew that the games were being worked on by then, and that goes to Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon development. So Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon development goes back to 2016 and maybe even earlier, so we're dealing with a lot of years of game development for the future Pokemon games. All the new Pokemon, they're known, they're finalized, they're inside of the game. Niantic introducing the first Pokemon in a new generation like this, they're going to have the numbers. They're going to know where Meltan sits in the National Pokedex, and that's just going to make it easiest for development, and it's going to be the most clear. Also, it seems like a mistake that Niantic would make. That, not expecting the data mine or stuff like that. They're just like, well, this is Pokemon 891. There's nothing out there, there's nothing crazy in just believing that they're going to say, well, we know this is Pokemon 891 National Dex, we're going to list it as that, and then we're going to fill in the gaps in between as we go into the other Pokedexes and other generations and stuff. So I think that just kind of shows that it's not exclusively Generation 7 just because Joe Merrick says it. Also, we saw something like this already. Ho-Oh and Celebi assets were leaked, and it gave us 250. It gave us 251. So it's not like it jumped around, gave us all these other ID things. We've seen this before with unreleased Pokemon. Now, it wasn't a massive generational jump like we've seen with this, but this was also Charles. As we can see, this is his imager. He posted this kind of showing when we were getting the new Pokemon and the events like that. So that's why I'm really interested in seeing what he has to say about it. But it looks like the way he's classifying it, all his tweets, everything else saying it's 891, the GitHub data, it's even classified in the GitHub data as Pokemon 891. I don't think it's about asset ID number, I just think it's about this is how Pokemon Go classifies. It's different to what happens with the main series handheld games that aren't directly related to Pokemon Go. Also, I feel like the last bit of what Joe Merrick says is really beneath him as being like an objective news source or something, because of course this is up in the air, but the facts here speak for themselves. They don't, though. We don't have any facts on that. This is how Pokemon Go is going to operate, with how the assets and ID numbers and index numbers work and how that relates to Pokemon Go. And like that's so like intellectually dishonest to be like, well, it's up in the air, but I have the facts. No. And then he also asked for thoughts after that. And then this was after the first post. So, you know, he did this. Sorry, mods, should be in the mega thread, but I felt like I needed to get it out there. Still working on the complete list of this. And then had to make another post to try to get more attention to this. And then try to confirm himself even further. It just rubs me the wrong way, especially with like kind of the direction that Joe Merrick has been taking on his personal thoughts outside of exactly what we know about new Pokemon stuff coming out. So what are your guys' thoughts? Do you think that Meltan is a Generation 7 Pokemon? Did you think it was Generation 7 because of this post, but now looking at it, maybe it's not that objective? Because I think it's weird. Like, how do you just see Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon asset files immediately say, well, that's Pokemon Go, so I guess it's confirmed. You're wrong, Verlisify. Debunked. When there's really nothing about that. Did you think it's Generation 8? I think it just makes more sense from like that cross-promotional aspect that, hey, Pokemon Let's Go needs promotion, and Generation 8 needs promotion, and that you do all this really cool stuff. So just because Meltan appears in a Generation 7 game doesn't mean that it's only Generation 7, because Pokemon has teased things from the future before. So if you guys enjoyed the video, hope you all have a nice day. Thank you very much for watching.